Hey, folks, we're live. Welcome to the pre-show. Thanks for coming in. Those of you who are here early, thanks for being here early. Nice to see y'all. Hey, Leslie. Good to see you, Leslie. Thank you, Leslie. I just noticed that. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that very much. So does my wife. And, of course, officially, corporately, this show. The show thanks you. Thank you, Leslie. That's beautiful. I appreciate that. Steve Clark, good to see you. Susie Q, good to see you as well. And I think that might be all that's in here right now. Now, the show starts at now 3 minutes past the top of the hour. And we go until 58 minutes. 3 to 58 is 55. That's right. So 3 to 58. That allows room for the network to have their commercial breaks. And I don't know why that's like that. I don't like that tag hanging out of my flag. That'll rip off. Nope. I'll just tuck it away. How about that? That bothers me a little bit. Just a personal thing. I don't like the tag flipping out like that. So, don't get blown away, Steve. It's windy up here, too. Hey, Uncle Dave. It's me. Can't you see me? It's me. We got 20 seconds and we go live on the radio, folks. So stand by. I'm going to go dark and we're going to go live right now. Sit tight.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Well, happy Wednesday night, folks. Welcome to the program. I'm your host, Scotty Roberts. This here is my show, the Intrepid radio program. And I want to welcome you here. You can hear us over on Subspace Radio. That's subspace.radio in our audio format. And you can join us, of course, in our simulcast visual video format over on Facebook, on my page, on Subspace Radio's page, on Intrepid Radio's page, and of course right here in my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. I want to thank you all for being here. Thanks for taking your time to come in and spend it with me. And I feel very honored. I want to welcome everybody that's over in the chat room tonight. And folks, if you're listening anywhere, if you're listening audibly on the radio station, you can come in and tune in the chat room and join the conversation with the fellow Intrepids. And they're all in there starting to, well, not all of them. There's a handful of them in there right now, starting to chat up a storm. And I said good evening to most of you earlier, but welcome again. Let's see. Thank you for letting me know, Steve. There's still an old radio station logo on my intro banner. That's because that's an old intro. I've got to fix that. I've got to go in and redo that one. So thank you, Steve. I appreciate that and that information. And I will flog my staff thoroughly since none of them have taken care of that yet for me. Steve, thank you. Let's see who else here. Did I see Beth Kirkham? Beth, welcome to the program. Welcome to the chat room tonight. Hope you're doing well after all your travels. And David Castle is here. And Susie Q is here. Leslie Holker is here. And Dave Potter, Uncle Dave, we call him, is here. And several others of you are in here somewhere, I do believe, because there's more people here than that. Grumpy Stack is here. I need to find out how to turn off the dark mode on YouTube, he says. If anybody out there can help Grumpy Stack, let him. I can, but I'm not going to talk about it. I'm withholding information from you, Grumpy Stack, in lieu of other things going on. And you know how we like to start this program. Many times it's with familial interludes that are unplanned. Children coming in to say things and be naughty or tell me they love me or whatever they're going to do. And I have fully determined that maybe something you've all determined a long time ago, that at least one of my children is incredibly spoiled. And spoiled to the I don't know if I got water on the floor there. It's slippery right under my chair. And one of my children has pushed me to the point of selling her on the open trade market. So we'll leave that at that. So if any of you are parents and you know what I mean, you never stop loving your children, but there's times you want to sell them. So there it is. That's like an old pastor friend of mine once, many years ago. I asked him, I said, have you ever considered divorce ever? Has it ever run across your, and shot across your bow? And he said, divorce? Never. He said, axe murder? Many times. So there you go. Let's see. Hi, Scotty. This Scott Wise from Paranormal Gateway from Subspace Network. Hey, Scott. How you doing, brother? Good to see you in here. Glad you came in. And who else we got? Elderberry. But I was saying about children. You all know that's not the topic for tonight, but it's the topic that's on my mind because it gets me at times to the boiling point. And where my children have developed their sassiness, and that puts a polite word on it. They're talking back. And you can't punch them. You can't dismember them. You can't bury them in the yard. You can take away their devices and their privileges and things like that. But it's a lesson that seems by some of my children to not be learned very well. And there's times where, like, not long before this program started tonight, I had to incorporate a little verbal discipline, shall we call it, and a little taking away of privilege. And those children, there are days where I got to tell you, I'm like, what was I thinking? You ever have those days, parents? Well, today is one of those days for me. So I appreciate you all being here and listening to that little rant. I could go on about politics too, and I don't want to call it politics. Why is anything that smacks of government or current events or the president or Congress or laws or anything, we always put that, oh, that's politics. I don't want to hear politics. It's not politics. People make politics out of those situations, but those are the current events, and those are things that are making this country go or not go. And I've really come to the conclusion that people will vote party over improving something if that improvement might come from the other side of the aisle. Oh, we can't let them do that. No. And many people, I've been watching some of these debates when I have a chance. I'll be sitting here working and I throw on some of the debates, the gubernatorial debates and things like that. And there's some of these on the left that are hiding out, that will not debate those on the right. And you could see it if you're on the left. You might look at that and say, well, that's because they don't want to waste their time with that person. There's nothing new to say. They don't want to give them any political hay. And then from the right side of things, you would have them saying it's because they're afraid that their record is going to be challenged. They're afraid their decisions will be challenged. They're afraid that people will see and it will be uncovered that they aren't doing the right things that need to be done. So you've got the parties that go at it. I have little respect for a candidate that wants the public's vote but will refuse to debate their opponent before the people that are going to cast those votes. I have a big problem with that. If you're going to be out there asking for my vote, you better damn well put your face forward and put your feet forward and show me that you are willing to take on the challenge. You're willing to take on the opponent. You're willing to show why your policies are better for me and the country than your opponents. If you're avoiding that person, I don't care what party you're in, if you're avoiding that confrontation, if you're avoiding that challenge to perhaps your incumbency, then you are probably worthy of being voted out, as far as I'm concerned. So when I don't see the debate, I see somebody who thinks they can sit back and rest on their laurels. They either believe that or they're scared to death to have their laurels challenged. And that is when it is a problem. Jim Pantelli, how you doing, brother? I haven't seen you for ages. Good to see you. I worked with Jim Pantelli in Detroit back from 1989, late 1989. I was the art director at that shop, and until 91. It was either late 90 or 91. I was there a year and a half. So, Jim, it's good to see you, brother. Haven't talked to you in a very long time. Nice to see you here. And I'm glad you're doing well. And Grumpy Stack says push-ups are getting easier and harder at the same time. I'll bet they are. You've only got what? It's the third day of November. Grumpy, you've only got about 3,972 push-ups left before the end of the month. So keep us updated, though. I want to see you make that challenge. 3,000 push-ups this month for Doug Stack. Let's see him do it. Now, you know what we've seen about Doug Stack? We've seen Doug Stack lose 270 plus pounds in the last less than 2 years, year and a half. And we've seen him go in and he's working out. And he's getting lean muscle mass. You see in the pictures of him doing push-ups, I could see the muscles bulging and the veins and all of that. So very cool. So good for you, Doug. I'm glad, Grumpy Stack, you're at it. 17,432 left for today, he says. But anyway, back to this whole thing of current events and what goes on. I look at current events and they're worth talking about. I see the whole Twitter thing. Just want to make a comment on that. Is that I see all these celebrities, and who cares? The celebrities who come up there and say, well, I guess I'm out of here, Twitter, see you later. Maybe, is said with the same level of conviction and depth and breadth as their threat to leave the United States for Canada or some foreign country should Trump be voted into office, or should whatever thing has happened already and they're still here. I want to look at them and go, you're still here. What happened? But I see all of that going on. And I said to somebody today, I wasn't starting anything. I was drawn into the conversation. And I don't spend a lot of time with this stuff anymore. I don't have time for it. It's become old. It's become a waste of time to sit and talk. Maybe that's my version of the waste of time of debating anybody online. But then again, I'm not running for office. I'm not asking for people's votes. So if I get tired of debating with somebody, it's like, look, all you're going to do is tell me I'm wrong, and then you're going to tell me I'm a coward if I walk away. So, what it comes down to, the bottom line for me is I don't care. I've got better things to do. But I did say to somebody today about this whole Twitter thing, I said, I think it's impressive that as soon as Twitter now is going to have a more open platform where people can speak their mind, and even the president can be fact-checked, which happened for the first time this week. And now you want to leave? That says to me that you were somebody that was in support of having nobody challenge what you say, or nobody challenge your... This is just like the debates, the debate question. If you're afraid to have somebody challenge you and stand up and present your case, then you're not worthy to have a case to begin with. Now, maybe you have a right to have a case. Are you worthy of it? No. Constitution guarantees us the right to free speech. It does not guarantee us the outcome or the consequence of being stupid. So there it is. And so I'm looking at these celebrities. I want to see you. I'm sure we'll see from you again. Or looking for a better platform, somebody said. And I said, oh, you mean, I said to that person, I said, oh, you mean one that makes sure that you're never challenged for what you say, or never fact check on what you say or hold to? There it is. I got a Facebook user saying, hey, I don't know who that is. It just says, hey, with no name. Facebook user. Good to see you. Welcome to the program. Hey back. And Barbie D, good to see you too. Leslie said, I left because if our president wasn't good enough for Twitter, they weren't good enough for me. I just reopened my account, going to give it a try under Elon Musk. I left when Rush Limbaugh was banned from. Now, I liked Rush. It wasn't a huge, oh, I will slit my wrists if Rush Limbaugh can't be on Twitter. I wasn't like that. It was just like, look, if you guys as a corporate entity are going to block somebody from speaking because you disagree with what he says, and you use some lame excuse for something you think that was stupid that he said to ban him, you know what? Maybe this is not the place to be. Now, I came back too. I started it up again. When I heard Elon Musk was thinking of buying Twitter, I went back and reopened my account. I couldn't reopen my account because I had gotten rid of it. So I just, I started a new account over there. So Chuck Thurston says, is Twitter going to support libel, slander, and defamation charges against the person posting? I don't know. I don't know what their take is going to be with that. However, if you offer an open platform for people to talk to each other, and somebody says something that's not true about somebody else, I don't think the platform should be held responsible for that, because it's not their idea. I think they need to get back to being an open platform where people can say, idiots will try to sue Twitter because somebody using Twitter slandered or libeled them or lied about them or whatever. And it's like, let me cry for you. Oh, did somebody say something not right about you? And Chuck, I'm not mocking you. I'm mocking the people who do that. It's like, whatever. You're on social media, and is your reputation sullied as a politician or holding some position of leadership or congressional position or whatever it might be because somebody challenged you or called you a liar or said something about it? Yeah, you know what? I think that's up to the individuals being libeled and slandered. to say, I want to sue this person who said this thing about me. If you're suing the entity that allowed them to say something, why was it so misbalanced then, if that's what it is? No, you know what? Lawsuits are misplaced when you sue the open platform that allows you for free at no charge to voice your opinions. They shouldn't be sued for somebody slandering or libeling somebody else. That's my thinking on it. So let's see. I wouldn't use Twitter, but the person posting. Beth Kirkham says, who does that? You're such a drama queen. Are you calling me a drama queen? Seriously, Beth Kirkham? You think I'm a drama queen? Or are you talking about the people who go, I have to leave Twitter? Oh, because somebody said something I disagree with. That's drama. I'm just saying it like it is. Cheers. So, Beth, glad you're here. So, I don't know who does that. Who does that? I don't know what the that is. What's the antecedent of that in your statement? I'd have to read back and see all the things that were said. Were you even talking to me? Maybe you weren't. So I look at all that stuff and I say, that's idiocy. And I do have a question for you, and this is about as deeply political as I'll get on this show, is looking at Joe Biden, who I don't blame him for his condition. I don't blame him for his diminished mental state. That's natural. That happens to people you love. It happens to people you hate. I have no problem with Joe Biden being in the state he's in mentally. What I have a problem with is all the people that will still support him, his administration that won't say, look, it's time to give the guy a break. But you know why they can't do that? Politics. That's where politics comes into it. We should honor and respect the president a little bit more than that. Even if you disagree with his politics, you disagree with his political ideologies, that Joe Biden is a man that should not be where he is now. And the people upholding him in that position on an official level are guilty of a hell of a lot of things. And so, yeah, he should not be the president right now. Do I want Kamala Harris as the president in his place? No. But I think we can handle Kamala Harris better than we can handle Joe Biden and the 50 handlers he's got. I'm making that number up. I don't know how many there are. The big question you have to ask is who is really presiding over the executive branch? Because it ain't Joe Biden. So who's doing it? What unelected official is being president behind the scenes, or elected officials behind the scenes? I'm only 63. I know my shit isn't what it used to be. My short-term memory is going. Me too, Chuck. I'm 62. Well, not yet. I will be in a couple of weeks. I'll be 62 years old. And there are times now, is my brain going to shit? Probably not. But I'm tired or more tired than I used to be. Things tire me out quicker, not better. Thank God I haven't lost touch with my cognitive faculties. But there are times I say, if I'm this bad at 62, what am I going to be at 78 or 82? I look at Joe Biden, I go, he's only 16 years older than I am. Only. He was a zitty-faced kid when I was born. So he ain't that far ahead of me. And I think, is that what I have to look to? But I also look at Joe Biden. I look at like the loss of his son, Bo, when Bo died of I think it was a brain tumor. I look at that, and I have seen things written up about this before this happened to Joe Biden. And then also since, is that when you have an emotional trauma like that in your life, especially when you're an older person, and something like that happens, that can aid in precipitating a decognitivization, for lack of a real word, that can aid in the you losing more cognitive. Oh, God damn it! What am I trying? Oh, I said a bad word. Sorry. Some people are very offended by that. I'm sorry. You know what I mean. When you have tragedies like that, they have the ability to dissemble your thinking mind, and you can go faster into that. Um, why am I not thinking of the word for some? See, this is what happens. This never would have happened to me 10 years ago. Searching for the word like this. Damn it. Trauma and pain on losing a child. Leslie mentioned that. She should know. And many of us here have had tragedies in our lives. When you're older and you are already susceptible, perhaps, to cognitive decline, a trauma could set that off even deeper. And I think we saw a lot of that happen with Joe Biden. I think, and that was before he ran for office. And I don't think he was going to run, and I think he got dragged into it. I've said this many times. Joe Biden, I used to like Joe Biden. I didn't like his political ideologies. I would never have supported for him or voted him, but I always thought he was a decent guy, a decent opponent. And then, of course, you'll learn more. Somebody becomes president. You want to learn every little dark secret and every little charge and false or real or whatever in between about somebody. So all we heard about Trump was, the whole grabbing pussy statement he made when he didn't know he was being recorded. Locker room talk. We heard him do a lot of locker room talk. We had a bunch of women come out of the closet and accuse him. Same thing happened to Joe Biden. Look at the whole creepy Joe effect and all of that. That's all come out since he ran for president. But then you got people saying we all knew about this in Congress a long time ago. But he still won. We didn't hear the press going off on that. Why? The press was complicit in his election. That's all you have to look to is things like that. When you have the bias set by the press and the press is creating the narrative and pushing the agenda, what are you going to end up with? You're going to end up with a president like Joe Biden, who nobody says shit about his shit. So there it is. If you heard that, I still have children yelling upstairs. So that's what they do. Yeah, that's all you heard about Trump all the time. And even now, well, where did all that stuff go? It's gone now because he's not running anymore. At least not yet. Probably will run again. I saw somebody call Trump an illiterate piece of shit, somebody said to me about him over just talking. And, I try not to, when I talk politics to people, I try to be polite. I try to be professional. I don't start using derogatory terms for, I don't look at guys running for office on the other side of the aisle from where I like to vote and say, well, that piece of shit or that diminished, fucktard in the office, whatever it might be. I don't use those kinds. I don't even use libtard. I don't do that in my discourse. I don't care if anybody else wants to. I don't. Because I try to keep a higher level of discourse when I'm talking to people. Yet, that's what I see a lot of people falling back on. And when somebody said that to me, he's an illiterate piece of shit. I said, oh, I didn't know Trump couldn't read. When did this information come out? I didn't know he was illiterate. And of course, it's just a slam. And I say, all you're doing is you're slamming somebody rather than offering me something cogent to tell me why. You can fall back even on charges that were made against him. Do you have the proof that those charges were true? No, but you still use them. And I still see people today saying, well, if Trump gets reelected, he's going to take us right over to Putin and we'll become Russia. And I'm like, really? You're still gnawing on that stupid, insipid, ridiculous bone that Trump was in league with Putin? If you think Trump was in league with Putin, you're not a very good thinker. And you don't connect the dots very well. And I will go out on a limb. I don't know if there's anybody here who actually believes that about Trump, but if you think Trump was colluding with Biden, colluding with Putin, you're kind of stupid in my book, because that did not happen. And that's not because, oh, he's my guy. He's just your guy and you're trying to support him. What a bunch of bullshit. No, Trump did not collude with Putin. And you wonder about others who have, though. Anyway, there. I've gone off on my tangent for today about that kind of stuff. None of this segues well into speaking about Tolkien and the influences, the things that influenced Tolkien to write his Lord of the Rings books. However, his Middle Earth books, we'll put it that way. However, yeah, you're right, Sarah. People have lost the ability to debate properly. And I once said, somebody was criticizing Trump and they called him the orange, what do they call him? Something, the demented orange, a man in the office, orange man bad, that whole thing. And I said, well, wouldn't that be as if I came back and said about Obama, something like the stupid purple eggplant in the office? And, oh, that's so racist. I got reported for that. I got reported for that little bit of free speech. Now, I wasn't calling Obama anything, but I said, wouldn't that be like using this kind of epithet for Obama? I said, it doesn't work, does it? I said, why don't you stick to the facts? If you're going to talk political discourse, then use intelligent discourse. Don't talk to me like you're fighting in a bar room and nobody understands what English means. Yeah, I'm going to punch you in the throat, you stupid head. Whatever it might be. That's dumb. If you're going to talk politics and debate whether somebody's good or bad for this country or for a state or whatever it is, don't start hurling out name calling. How blatantly, stupidly immature is that? For lack of a better word off the top of my head, immature. That's just dumb. Tell me why that person is better or the other person is bad. And don't fall back on cliche charges that are made. Every president gets them. It's just only usually one side of the political aisle is the only one that the press will make sure everybody knows more about. The only time they talk badly about anybody on the left is when it's so big a story that it can't be denied anymore. Just look at the Hunter Biden laptop issue. I rest my case. So, moving on. How do we segue from that to talking, other than saying that was our political segment, without really being politics, talking about politics, not being political? So, at least in my estimation of the way I express myself. So maybe I'll do this. I'll do something we don't normally do. I'm going to put in like a 30-second break here. Let's cleanse the palate and let's move on. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to play here. We'll play the opening to It's Sunday with Rainey and Scotty, and for a little ad for Sunday mornings. So here you go. I'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to the program, folks. This is Scotty Roberts. This is the Intrepid radio program. We're changing to our topic of the night very quickly with that little segue, but I do have to put this post up from Chuck Thurston. talk, have a point of view, support your view, but don't get pissy when somebody doesn't agree with you. LOL. Amen, brother. I agree. And Sarah Yusuf, if people have to go to insults, they've already lost the debate. Boom. There it is. And let's leave it at that. And I appreciate the fact that you're all here. Let's talk a little Tolkien. We left off talking about Tolkien last night. We've been talking about the influences on him. And in writing the stories you write, and as a writer myself, I understand the things that motivate the stories we tell. What do they say? There's no original story out there. Or there's like 5 different original stories that exist. And every single story in human history follows the same motif as one of those 5 stories. And I could maybe do a show on that. We'll talk about that sometime, just for the fun of it, or bring that up in a show. I don't have them in front of it. Excuse me. Chuck Thurston, what's your take on the Ents like Treebeard? A very hard kind of character to take from book to movie, certainly. In the books, it works very well because your imagination is building that. But watching and listening to Jonathan Rhys Davies, who plays Gimli, the dwarf, in the Lord of the Rings movie, and was also Sala in Indiana Jones, if you don't remember that. But to hear him, danger and time and leaves and twigs. To hear him do that, it was effective in the movies. However, at the same time, it's very hard to create the visual of that character along with the voice and all of that and make it as believable. You really have to suspend belief when you're watching a movie. In the book, though, it's all in your imagination. My thought on the Ents. Jimmy Pantelli says, Scotty, my friend, I wish I could stay a little longer, but 6 a.m. comes quick, especially when you're in Detroit and you're an hour ahead of us. So go to bed, Jimmy. Glad to see you, brother. I appreciate it. And you're right, Morgan Snow. Insults do not belong. Intimidation do not belong in debates. Elderberry likes Elmish. There you go. Do you speak Elmish, Elderberry? And go out to the tree on my front boulevard. And so, aren't you glad you missed the Dutch elm pandemic that hit all our trees 30 years ago? Or whatever it was, however many years. Ancient history from the world of nature's point of view. I like that Tolkien built that into his characters and into his storyline. The Ents, you asked me what I thought about the Ents, more than what I thought about how they translated to film, but that's how I answered it. I liked the Ents for that very same reason you stated. They were the guardians and the protectors of the forest, of nature almost, if you will. And that's what I liked about them. It was great to have them in. Great to have them in. I don't know why I said that. I was looking at something somebody else said in the chat room. It was a great way to express what Tolkien wanted to express about nature. And he was a firm believer, as we saw last night, and we talked about, very firm believer. He was a staunch Roman Catholic, and he was very Christian. He said his books were very Christianized, and the themes were very Christianized. And so bringing in nature as the protectors of God's creation was something I think that was near and dear to his heart. And so when you start looking at Tolkien's influences again, you can see it all different kinds of different cultures, different religions, culture. Let me amend that. Not religions. Christianity was what pushed it. He does include some pagan religion. He does include pagan influence, all while saying that his book is very, very much a picture of Christianity, a picture of Christianity's God, and that is the one God, he said. But he goes to other cultures as well. And last night we left off. We were talking about the Finns, and how that they had influence over what he wrote. And we left off with the Greeks and just started introducing it a little bit. But there was Tolkien. And by the way, I sat and I was watching. My son was. My wife took the girls off to scouts and stuff tonight, and hockey for the little girl. And so Flynn put in The Hobbit, the last of the 3 Hobbit movies. He said he hadn't seen it yet, and he watched it. I watched that with him all the way up until about 10 minutes before this show. And the movie finally ended. And it was very good. There were scenes that were very touching and scenes that meant something, especially if you were into the mythology and into the mythology that was rebuilt in the movies. And seeing the actor who played the young Bilbo Baggins versus the elderly Bilbo Baggins, Sir Ian Richards? I can't remember his name. Ian. So anyway, there was this. So I'm afresh, by the way, with the empathy from the movies that was put into the movies, and of course, because you're not reading it and it's not engaging your imagination to create things. It's all created for you in front of you. There's all that emotion that's packed into it. Emotion in the scenes, emotion in the pictures, in the actors, in the music, and everything that's there. So I came fresh off of that. So looking at the influences, there was influence from Greek mythology. It's very apparent in the disappearance of the island of Numenor. And we talked this last night, recalling Atlantis, Tolkien's elvish name Atalante, for Numenor, resembles Plato's Atlantis. And further, the illusion that his mythology simply extends the history and the mythology of the real world. And in his letters, Tolkien described this merely as curious chance, he said. Oh, that this is chance. And Greek mythology colors the Valar, who borrow many attributes from the Olympian gods. The Valar are like the Olympians. They live in the world, but high on a mountain, like Mount Olympus. And they're separated from mortals. Ulmo, the lord of the waters, owes much to Poseidon, and Menwe, and the lord of the air, and the king of Valar, to Zeus. And so Tolkien compared Beren, the Luthien, with Orpheus and Eurydice, but with the gender roles kind of reversed and flipped out. Oedipus is mentioned in connection with Turin in the Children of Hurin, among other mythological figures. And it's like this. There is the Children of Hurin, the tragic tale of Turin, Turambar and his sister Niniel, of which Turin is the hero, a figure that might be said by people who like that sort of thing, though it is not very useful, to be derived from elements in Sigurd the Volsung, Oedipus, and the Finnish Kullervo. And that was said by Carpenter in 1981 to Milton Waldman. So interesting stuff in deciphering Tolkien. Fëanor has been compared with Prometheus. And some of these characters, you might not recognize them. Those of you who didn't do a lot of reading of Tolkien, a lot of what you acquired of Tolkien and his work was through his books. Through the movies that depicted his books, but not all of his books about Middle-earth and his mythology to Middle-earth. And so very interesting stuff. So Fëanor has been compared by the way, he's a fictional character in the Silmarillion. And he creates 3 Silmarils. I still can't, the collection of those syllables together, those consonants together are hard for my tongue. That's why I can't say it for as many years as I've said it. And so the skillfully forged jewel that gave the book their name and their theme. And it triggered this whole division and destruction. He was the eldest son of Finwë, the king of Noldor, and his first wife, Miriel. That's who Fëanor was. And he's compared with Prometheus. They share a symbolical and a literal association with fire. They're both rebels against the gods' decrees, and basically inventors of artifacts that were sources of light or vessels to divine flame. C'est moi, c'est moi. Remember that song? A French Prometheus unbound. So the Promethean factor. And so the extent of Celtic influence has been debated when it comes to Tolkien's works. They all look very Celtic, don't they, when you look at them? Unless you know your Finnish and your Germanic and your other types of mythology. They come across very Celtic, very Irish. Tolkien wrote that he gave the Elvish language, Sindarin, a linguistic character very like, though not identical with, British and Welsh, because it seemed to fit rather Celtic types of legends and stories told of its speakers. And some names of the characters that Tolkien made and places in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings have Welsh origin. For instance, Crickhollow in the Shire recalls the Welsh place name Crickhowell, while the Hobbit name Meriadoc has been suggested as an allusion to a legendary king of Brittany. And though Tolkien denied any connection at all, there's no connection at all. I think, sometimes you come up with names. Sometimes for an author, some of the fun things we do is we come up with names. I had written the Bloodlore Chronicles years ago in a graphic novel, and I came up with the names of the characters. Jerem Tykana was the main character. Caris Vieira was the romantic interest. Sim Dival was the bad guy. So characters like that. And the names and the places of the Pahe were kind of a Native American looking type character in that science fiction novel of mine, graphic novel. And so you come up with names that work and they fit, and you draw those from certain elements, like the Pahe in my own story were supposed to be Native American type characters, Indians, indigenous types. And they took on that quality, though they weren't Indians. They weren't. It was another planet in a galaxy far, far away. And I did not steal that from Star Wars. So writers do that. We are influenced by things without necessarily directly borrowing or stealing something from somebody. So Tolkien kept denying some of the correlations. But in addition, the depiction of elves has been described as deriving from Celtic mythology. Tolkien wrote of a certain distaste for Celtic legends, largely their fundamental unreason, Tolkien said. And by the way, I almost want to lapse into Gandalf when I say that, because it was the actor, Ian McKellen, who plays Gandalf. He said that he patterned his portrayal of Gandalf after Tolkien. I believe he knew Tolkien. And so when he talks like Gandalf, the wizard does this and that, he says he's channeling Tolkien. And so I can almost hear Tolkien saying he wrote of his certain distaste for Celtic legends, largely for their fundamental unreason. But the Silmarillion is taught by scholars to have some Celtic influence. And the exile of the Noldoran elves, for example, has parallels with the story of the Tuatha De Danann, who we talked about several times over the last several weeks. The Tuatha De Danann, semi-divine beings, invaded Ireland from across the sea, burning their ships when they arrived and fighting a fierce battle with the current inhabitants. And the Noldor arrived in Middle-earth from Valinor and burned their ships when turned to fight Melkor. Another parallel can be seen between the loss of a hand by Maedhros. He was the son of Fëanor. and the similar mutations suffered by Nuada Ergetlim, Lud Law Errant, Silver Hand Arm, and during the battle with the Firbolg. And Nuada received a handmaid of silver to replace the lost one, and his latter appellation was the same meaning as the Elvish name Celembrimbor, the first is silver fist or hand of silver in Sindarin. And so other authors such as Donald O'Brien, Patrick Wayne, Carl Hostetter, many of these, maybe you know them, maybe you don't, Tom Shippey, have pointed out similarities between the tale of Beren and the Luthien in the Silmarillion and Colwick and Olwen, a tale in the Welsh. The book is called the Mabinogion, or Mabinogion. And in both, the male heroes make rash promises after having been stricken by the beauty of non-mortal maidens. Isn't that the way with guys? Non-mortal maidens, they always make us make promises because we're struck by their beauty. And both enlist the aid of great kings. Arthur and Finrod both show rings that prove their identities, and both are set impossible tasks that include, directly or indirectly, the hunting and the killing of ferocious beasts, the wild boars, Twirth, it's Gaelic, so it's hard to say, and Gaelic again, Ysgithrywyn. Say that one fast 3 times. Isthrwyn. I can't even say it, and that's the wrong pronunciation too, because it's Gaelic or Welsh. You can tell it's Welsh by all the Y's and the W's put together. The wolf, Karkaroth. And oh, man, I got to brush up on my pronunciations before I get to the show. And so with the help of the supernatural hound, Kafal and Huan, both the maidens possess such beauty that flowers grow beneath their feet when they come to meet the heroes for the first time, as if they were living embodiments of spring. The Mabinogion was part of the Red Book of Hergest, and it was a source of Welsh or Celtic lore that the Red Book of Westmarch, supposed source of Hobbit lore, probably imitates. The Arthurian legends are part of the Celtic and Welsh cultural heritage. Tolkien denied their influence, but the critics have found several parallels. Gandalf has been compared with Merlin, Frodo and Aragorn with Arthur, and Galadriel with the Lady of the Lake. Verlyn Flieger has investigated the correlations in Tolkien's creative methods. She points out visible correspondences such as Avalon and Avalone and Broceliand and Broceliand, and the original name of Beleriand. And Tolkien himself said that Frodo and Bilbo's departure to Tor Eressëa, and also called Avalon in the Legendarium, was an Arthurian ending. Tolkien himself said that. So such correlations are discussed in the posthumously published The Fall of Arthur. A section, The Connection to the Quenta, explores Tolkien's use of Arthurian material in the Silmarillion. Another parallel between the tale is of Sir Balin and that of Turambar. Though Balin knows he wields an accursed sword, he continues his quest to regain King Arthur's favor. Fate catches up with him when he unwittingly kills his own brother, and who mortally wounds him, and Turin accidentally kills his friend Beleg with his sword. So there's all of this kind of mythology that ties into, and Tolkien, to deny it, that there is a correlation, is natural. It's an influence. You might ask me, did you base your story, The Mummy, my story, The 10 Breaths of Ra, the novel I'm still finishing for my agent, did I base that on Indiana Jones and the Mummy movies and all of that stuff? Hell no, I'll say. yet they have they bear remarkable resemblance in certain areas because their stories are the same thing, and those are things that influenced my mind when I wrote these things. So when you write, you want to make sure, hey, this has influenced me to create this kind of character and the things he's doing, but I'm not copying that. It has influence, but it's not a repeat of that. And I think that's what Tolkien was expressing when he talked about that. And the last cultural influence I got here is the Slavic. And there's a few echoes of Slavic mythology in Tolkien's novels, such as the names of the wizard Radagast and his home at Rosgobel in Rovanion. And all three appear to be connected with the Slavic god Radagast, a god of the sun, war, hospitality, fertility, and harvest. The Anduin, the Sindarin name for the great river of Rovanion, may be related to the Danube River, which flows mainly among the Slavic peoples and played an important role in their folklore. So there was Slavic influence. And when we get back to this, we may have one more day of Tolkien and the influences on him. We're going to look at the influence that history had on him. We're going to look at modern literature that may have influenced him. We're going to look at his personal experiences in World War I, his childhood, the war, inklings, and all of these things. And so we'll hit those tomorrow. And if we don't finish talking about Tolkien tomorrow, then it's Tolkien, the end of the Tolkien influences or bust tomorrow. And so we'll get into that some more. And right now, we're closing in on the end of the show for our radio audience. I want to thank all of those of you over there in radio land. I'm sorry, I was trying to do Ted Baxter, but Ted Baxter wasn't radio. He was television. But all of those of you over there on the radio, over at subspace.radio, who are listening to this in audio format, we got to get out of here in just about 20 seconds or so. And so I want to thank you for being here. If you want to come and join the Captain's Cabin, it starts immediately when this show is over, after a couple of little breaks in between, where we let our hair down and get a little less formal. We take calls and things like that. It's the post show. So now, for some reason, my radio connection just went away. So I must have, something is not set right again. So we're done on the radio, folks. But we're going to go out to break, and we're going to come right back with the Captain's Cabin. And so to the radio audience, if I missed you, live long and prosper. And we'll see you all back here in just a few minutes. Hang tight.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid Radio Program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAlanRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, AlanRoberts.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
Well, Army hearties, welcome to the Captain's Cabin. Those of you who haven't been here before, you know that this was aptly named by the listeners of this show as the Captain's Cabin for the post show. And we've been doing that for about a year now, something like that, maybe a little more than that since it was named. I can't remember. But I want to thank you all for being here and sticking around. And I'm going to throw out there the... if you want to talk about anything that we talked about on the show tonight, we got a totally different topic. Let me paste the way to call into the show right here. Now, you can call into the show and you will be brought in via video, but you don't have to be on video if you don't want to be. You just, you see, even some of our regulars like Sarah and Dave sometimes, and people that come in and talk on the show, they throw up an icon as opposed to showing their camera off. But you can come in on camera. You don't have to be on camera. So that's the, how was I going to say that? That's the way it works here, Captain's Cabin. So you can come on board if you want. You can talk if you want. Siani, I'll talk to you about business off air. And but you asked in the chat room, in a word, perfect. And we'll go from there. Tomorrow, I'll call you during business hours tomorrow. So, no camera here. You can call in. Still, Siani, call in. Don't not come in because you don't have a camera. You got a microphone, don't you? Come on in and talk. It'll just come in as a blank window. That's all. So let's see. Captain Bart would be cool. Read the code. Google it. I did. So let's see. I might be working. He said, "Oh, you might be working tomorrow? Oh, give me a call. Whenever you can. Not tonight. But yeah, in a word, I didn't mean that to sound as weird as it sounded. I just didn't want to get into the details of it on air and talk about it, but it's fine. It looks good. I think you'll like it. It's not done. Will be shortly, but I'll send you tomorrow. I'll send you a picture of what it looks like so far. Make sure you like what you're seeing. And then we go color. So doing some illustration work for Siani. And yeah, shoot me a message. So Sarah Yusuf, so busy day today. Yeah, it was a busy day today. Not as much for me as for Rainey. She ran all over the place. Wasn't feeling good. She signed up the little girl for girls hockey, 7-year-old girls hockey. And she had to run all over the place trying to find a hockey stick for her. And I said, I think there's one out in the shed in the backyard. And I think she missed me saying that. And I didn't get out there to go check. So she ran to the city and bought a brand new hockey stick for Ellery, and well, she got them for like, I think she said she spent $50 for two of them, and because she wasn't sure if she was going to play left or right-handed, my ambidextrous child, and so I said, I thought there was one in the shed, and you wouldn't have had to pay anything because we bought them 3 years ago when the other kids were playing hockey. And sure enough, the little child went out there and to get a rake, and she came back with a hockey stick. It's we got a hockey stick, same size, everything. So I think Rainey will be able to bring at least one of those other hockey sticks back. So, because she cut it down and taped it. It's hard to bring back a cut down hockey stick. So anyway, so all that to say, Rainey had a very busy day today. She ran to the cities. She ran to do this. She ran to do that. Then she had to come back. She had to take the little girl to hockey. And I could have taken the little girl to hockey. The little girl didn't want me bringing her. She wants mom bringing her to hockey. Mom signed her up, all that. And mom hyped it and pumped it. And so, but then she had to take her right from there to Scouts. And so here's Rainey doing all this running around. And then she got back, and some things she'd asked the kids to do, they didn't do. And so she ran out and did them. And I said, don't do them. Make the kids do them. And if I'd have known that she'd ask the kids to do these things, I would have pursued it while she was gone. But then again, she had 2/3 of our kids with her. So, yes, Siani, Tolkien is the god of fantasy. Very excellent. Yeah, poor mama. I get it, says Siani. Yeah. So, Rainey's busy all the time, busy with these kids all the time. These kids will walk right by me and go bother Rainey, who's doing something else or crashing to take a nap at some point in the day, 5:30 in the evening. And the kids walk right by me and go wake her up to ask her a question. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you? Didn't I tell you don't bother your mom? If you need something, come and see me. And, the little one mostly will go bother Rainey. She's attached at the hip to Rainey. So, which is fine, mothers and daughters. But sometimes you just go, come on, give mom a break. Let her be. That's my thing with the kids. Let mom be. Give her a break. I was saying earlier today that to somebody last night, the kids were all kind of screaming. We were all playing up in the living room, and we were all the kids had all the helium balloons that they'd gotten, and they're all sucking helium and talking like elves, and storybook elves, not Tolkien elves, and and I was doing it too, and it was funny. We were having a good time, and then one of the kids, Ellie, got mad that somebody else, she's got my balloon, grabbing it and hitting it, and it's like, guys, calm down. Good grief. Stop. Uncle Dave's waiting in the wings. He's seen this stuff happen with my kids at my house. And so I was like, kids, come on, knock it off. And I said, and they kept screaming. And I said, okay, here's the rule now for the evening. I said, next person to scream, I said, you're going to go to bed for the night. You're going to have no TV on. You're going to have no getting up and hanging out. It's all done. And nobody's going to be in there with you. You're going to sleep in the dark with no TV and no sound and sleep all night until morning.
So it's pretty much aimed at Ellery.
And so Rainey said, ah! Rainey screamed. She said, I'll do that. I'd like to have a night without any interruptions, without any kids crawling in the bed, without any lights on, without any noise. Because, me, I turn on the TV at night. And that lulls me to sleep. Or I have, you know what I like to do? I like to go to YouTube and do
Scroll
music. And no, I don't scroll. I just put it up on the TV or on my phone, whichever it may be. And it's got night music, like chakra music. Or I actually have grown to really like, there's one, it's Skyrim, which is games. that Flynn plays. I don't play them, but Skyrim, and it's these beautiful, glorious, lush illustrations of scenes from their games.
Yeah, I'm
And they
familiar.
play this music. And they have one called Fall or Autumn. And it's walking you through all these fields and mountainscapes and stuff like that. But it's almost photorealistic, and the motion graphics are just amazing. It's like watching, if any of you are into gaming, which I'm not, but I've seen it, things like Assassin's Creed, where they build these whole worlds. It's that well done. And you watch, so go look it up. Skyrim, it's music, Skyrim, and Autumn.
I like to listen to Cistercian monks or
Yeah,
Gregorian chants, and
I like that too. I've got a couple of albums on. No, but speaking of albums, because it just came to my mind, I've got that on my iTunes Music.
yeah,
And I've got a couple of Gregorian chant CDs on there. Now, this is music that I bought and paid for several years ago, 5-6 years ago. And I've got all these albums in there. Now, I hadn't been using that for a while because I'd been using YouTube. And I went back into my Apple Music on my Apple computer to listen to one of those albums. I was looking for a song. I now got to pay for Apple Music $9.99 a month in order to access the albums I paid for 5 years ago.
yeah, that's ridiculous.
It starts to get old. All this crap gets really old. So, I've got half your face covered. I've still got the banners up here. Let me take that down.
Yeah, whatever.
So, anyway, go look it up, folks. If you sleep by music and you like that kind of stuff, look up Skyrim and their Autumn. It lasts like 9 hours, something like that. So it just keeps replaying every, I don't know how long the loop is. I've never caught it yet because it always puts me to sleep. But I like watching those graphics of walking through sunrises and sunsets and sunny days. It's all very orangey and fall colors and all of that. But you're walking through these wilderness settings. And it's foresty wilderness settings. It's really well done. So, anyway.
I just came across a video I was looking for so that I could share it with somebody, but it's this snowflake saying that farming needs to stop. It's the biggest driver of climate change. It's okay. He'll still be able to get food at the grocery store.
Yeah. Some of this stuff is just the what's the word? The superlatives that are incorporated in everything is just like ridiculous. Oh, yeah. Hey, Mike Topping, I see you out there. I don't know who you are.
He speaks with such authority, and it's like, well, kid, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You've spent your whole life living in town. You don't know where your own food comes from. Half the people that are woke, or more than half, are vegan. What are they going to do?
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
By the way, I've got Mike Topping came into, he called in. I haven't seen you in the chat room. I don't recognize your name. We're very cautious these days because of some of the idiots who live in mom's basement at age 42 like to flash up porn on our screen when we call them up. So I'm very cautious about who I bring in. Tell us in the chat room a little bit about who you are, and then maybe we'll bring your call in. If you don't say anything in the chat room, it just kind of makes my case. So no offense, it's just the way we have to do things around.
Are you coming in through YouTube or MySpace? Or me,
I'm sitting in YouTube right now. MySpace. There's
yeah.
Yeah.
I still have a MySpace account. I think I have 3 or 4. I haven't been to them.
It's MySpace. I haven't looked at MySpace in years.
Yeah,
and years.
It's still up though. A lot of our content is missing. Yeah, we should go in and update that.
That's interesting. So, Skyfall, it's good to see you. Mike Topping, still waiting for you to come into the chat room and say hi. If you want to make a call in and you want me to put you on air, go say something in the chat room. If you don't, I know what's going on. I know the game is afoot. So, anyway, Christo, I don't know what this is. Oh, this is the orthodontics place. When Rainey did the art show, they were giving away these mugs. So we got some of these, and it's like, I'm not promoting it because I don't, orthodontics.
Yeah,
So
whatever.
I got to get a new Intrepid mag mug, or Intrepid
If
radio.
only
mug.
you knew somebody that made those.
If only I knew. So I think MySpace still exists.
Yeah, it does.
Let's find out. MySpace.com. Yeah, it's there.
Yep. Our Popscot site is still there, and my personal page is there. I think my Captain Morgan page is there. Just a lot of the content that I'd left up.
Wow. I wonder, sign in. Do I even have a sign in?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's,
man.
I got to look up one of my old log books to see.
I wouldn't even know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm going to try something, though. This is an old email that doesn't exist anymore. Do that. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to do it because it's a waste of my time. But I put in Scotty at taverntent.com. That was my old email address for an old website I started in 1997. Taverntent.com was my website. And of course, during one particular period, I let Tavern Tent slip when I was supposed to renew it. And some Chinese company scooped it up. And they offered it to me for we see you tried to sign into Tavern Tent. We'll sell it to you for $5,000. And I was like, you know what? You can go fuck yourself. How about that? And so Tavern Tent is now gone. I don't think there's anything there. Taverntent.com. If I go there, let me just see if it actually goes anywhere. This domain has expired and cannot be normally accessed. Please renew it to continue using it. And Chinese symbols all over it. So, I don't know. Last I tried, somebody emailed me and wanted to sell it to me for $5,000. I was like, are you kidding me? I said, I created it. How about I give you nothing and you pay me $5,000 to take it back? Get it off your hands. Who else wants a domain named Tavern Tent? So, anyway. How you doing, Professor?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
I'm great.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's shaking?
Well, I'm in the middle of repairing my production computer. It's apparently decided that it doesn't want to produce anymore. So I had to dig out my tools and things and try to dig in and find out what's going on. I'm still in the middle of that. And I heard your rant earlier about the there's a different name for it, the political aspect of the discourse.
Yeah.
It's actually to me what's happened is the cultural social fabric has been infiltrated with politics.
Yeah.
So you can't really have a discussion about what's going on without discussing the political aspects that have been rubbed all over this stuff. So
yeah, very true.
It's a stain on the political fabric.
it really is on the social fabric, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I think, I was right now this week, I'm making sure I'm picking up as much of the intel that's going on and about as possible, because it's quite telling. It's a good indicator of at least directionality and the trends that things are going. And it's really fascinating to see how the narrative has been bifurcated. And so you can you're watching one screen, but there's two movies going on at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And you look at it and you go, well, wait a minute. They're describing something that I haven't seen or I can't find, or at least what they're using as the source data for whatever they're going on about. I go and look at that data and I see something completely different. It's like, well, there's something afoot. Either I'm losing my noodles at 65, which I don't think that's going on. Just like that was the other thing I wanted to mention, Scotty. It's not, the age thing is something that the cycles within cycles in our biology it's designed to do what it does. And you can either be aware of it and try to manage it, or you can just kind of go, well, fuck, I'm getting old, so I'm expecting that to happen, right?
Well, what it is it's dangerous for you to believe what you see and hear. You'd better just listen to us, and we'll tell you what to think. That's so much safer.
Well, not only what to think, but what's really important that will impact you. One of the things that I find fascinating is just about everything that I remember being told when I grew up in the 60s and 70s about cholesterol and tobacco and, all these different things that would impact my health. Salt is another one. You got to keep the sodium down, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Literally 100% of that stuff has turned out to be exactly the opposite. Now that there's been data that's been accumulated over time with much more detailed research and studies and equipment, telemetry, all that good stuff that makes a richer data set. And you look at this and you're going, there is nothing that the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, it's not a policy body, right? It's just like the CDC. It's really a separate organization from the government. And they've been just like the Federal Reserve. All of these entities have been attached to the governmental process that we use to govern our country. And they have been given over time more and more importance and more power, basically from the standpoint of saying, if this is what they say, this is what you shall do. Right. And it's just like this whole thing with the vax. Now it's clear, and it's from the people at the top running these institutions that are creating a majority of this crap. They go out and they get their 4th, 5th, and 6th booster, and they still get the virus.
Yeah.
And you go, well, okay, so what you're telling me is that this vaccine, quote unquote, not only does not prevent you from getting it, but it also doesn't prevent transmission. So what good is it? Right?
Yeah.
You look at those fundamentals and you go, okay, well, now that narrative is falling apart. And now we've got this whole new cycle of awesome stuff that's going to happen over the next month or two with our politics. And that the political shift that it appears to be happening, at least directionally, and the trend lines are heading in that direction. There seems to be not just a party choice kind of thing. It's more of the way we think about things kind of thing. I think there's more people that are looking at, they look at the person, and that's obviously important. If you can't get up and do a debate like you were talking about earlier, Scotty, if you don't get up and get at least to a town hall and take questions, okay, whether you debate or not, but if you're not going to get out in public and explain who you are and what you are going to do, what your intent is, then you really shouldn't be in the race.
Why can you not debate somebody? They use the very lame, weak excuse that, well, I don't agree. They're just a challenger and nothing they have to say is valid. And it's just going to weaken the blah, blah, blah-de, blah-de, blah, 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 blah. And which is a lame excuse for not debating somebody. If they're that weak and they have no tone to what they're saying, and they have nothing that means anything, and they're going to be easily dismantled, show the American people that you can do that.
Well, and not only that, when you win, you don't just get to represent your side. You have to represent both sides.
That's it.
Right.
And so if you can't take questions from the opposition and put them at ease, then maybe you don't have the right answers.
That's it. That's
if you're really good at your job, you should be able to take questions from anybody and make them fall in behind you, wanting you to be there. That's the whole goal.
And that's the whole point about asking the right questions. You have to ask questions before you're going to get answers. Whether you're asking the questions internally and doing your own research, or if you're talking to somebody that is asking for your support to go do what it is that they say they want to do. Well, I've got some questions. I'm going to ask you about this, 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 and this. And
I got a question. I got a question. Is you a dumbass or just stupid?
There it is.
Did you get dropped on your head, or were you born that way?
I don't trust anybody that doesn't want to answer questions. A
Right.
debate, I don't care if you think your opponent is an idiot. Debate them and prove that they're an idiot.
Well, and
to the rest of the people.
And the thing too is that if you're going to, in a democracy, or where it's supposedly it's a Republican modeled democracy, where the democracy is the people, and the republic is the way in which that filters up into the government. Okay.
Yes.
So there's a check and a balance. And that's one of the things that you always want to have, specifically when somebody tells you, well, you must be a science denier, you should follow the science. And my reply is, I follow the scientific method, but I'm firmly convinced that science has been just as infiltrated and polluted and corrupted, just like all the other institutions. And at the end of the day, the easiest thing to do is follow the money. Mm-hmm. And the only way you can follow the money or follow any of the antics that goes about is if you have transparency.
Yeah.
Transparency is the truth frequency.
My parents are normal. They're not trans.
There you go. I just Chuck Thurston in the chat room was saying he had his third booster. I might get sick, but I shouldn't die. No slam on you, Chuck. I like you. You're my friend. We didn't get any of the shots. We didn't get the vax. We didn't get any of the boosters. And I've said this before. My whole family had it 2 years ago. It would have been January of 2020. Is that correct, or 2021? When was it that it was big?
It kicked off in January of 2020.
2020. So that's almost 3 years ago when you think about it now.
Yeah.
Because a year ago, when my daughters took us all to Disneyland or Disney World, they wanted us all to get tested or get vaccinated. They were big proponents of vaxes. And I said, well, I'm not going to get vaccinated. And I said, I have my reasons. It's not just political. I said, I have my reasons for it. Same reasons I gave my doctor, who was not pushing it on me. He said, so why don't you want to get vaxxed, Scotty? He's been my doc for 10 years. And I said, well, I've got an issue with it. I said, without waxing political, I'll just tell you, Doc, that I said, if I have a constitutional right and the federal government is trying to push a vaccination on people violating their constitutional rights under the guise of, well, it's to help everybody, when we don't know that that's what it does, I said, I have an issue with that. And I said, when you have the red flags for me, I said, is when you got to start bribing kids and bribing adults and having lotteries and all of this for taking the vax. I said, that's a red flag all by itself when the federal government is sponsoring that. When the federal government is okay with not doing it themselves, but supporting groups and companies and corporations to mandate that their employees get the shot or they lose their jobs. I said, that's a problem for me. I said, so all of that is a problem. And this is an old conversation I didn't refresh my memory on. So, but
the other thing that's happening is in the trend analysis.
Yeah.
What's happening is, and this always happens when you get more data as time goes on.
What?
What's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we in time or out of time? But what's happening is, did you hear about the state of New York? Their Supreme Court ruling. Okay.
Yes.
So they have now not only said you got to let these people go back to work that you said couldn't because they didn't get the jab, and reinstate their jobs, but you got to give them back pay.
Yep, you got to give them back pay, or you're going to be sued big time.
Those kinds of things are going to start, and it's first happening in New York. It's
See you, Sean.
I think there's something similar going on in Michigan, but the one in New York, obviously big. Well, I think we're going to see that roll across the country. Well, and then did you see the Atlantic?
Yes, I was going
on the trends.
Going to mention the Atlantic article,
right? The whole we've got to have a COVID amnesty Right.
I happened to have that
I'm going,
up.
is it really that
Here's-
bad?
here's
that
the
she's
actual-
finally waking up.
The Atlantic's actual headline said this: "Let's declare a pandemic amnesty.
That's what it is.
We need to forgive one another for what we did and said when we were in the dark about COVID." And it was by Emily Oster at The Atlantic. And there were actually several. Here they are. This is not what I thought it was. I thought it was, there was more to the article that was posted on this particular post. You can look it up. But there's an article floating around. I saw this from Dan Crenshaw, who is a Texas representative, the guy with the eye patch, if you don't know who that is. And he said there's an article floating around online from The Atlantic that has a pretty insulting message. Forgive and forget those who pushed COVID lockdowns on our schools and communities. The author says that we have to learn from our mistakes and let go and stop dwelling on the mistakes of history. The issue here is Democrats who insisted on shutting down America's schools can't even admit it was a mistake. They're trying to rewrite history and instead take credit for the inevitable reopening of the schools. That's like all that comes to mind is Biden taking credit for the creation of, X number of million new jobs when most of the jobs that went away when he shut everything down. So anyway, moving on, he said the reopening of the schools, something they did everything in their power to stop. The people who forced our kids into online learning haven't even asked for forgiveness, and instead are pretending that they played no role in our kids' declining math and reading skills and increased mental health issues. We have to make sure this will never happen again, and that starts with accountability. That's all what Dan Crenshaw had to say about this Atlantic.
I have to give him credit. Go ahead, Dave.
They did the same thing out east in Massachusetts. Oh, we're really sorry we buried those people. We really thought they were witches.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I gotta give them credit for trying to get out in front of the absolute whipping that these people are going to get, because it's not just it's not just the conspiracy theorists or the deniers of this or whatever you want to put in
right.
It's now that conspiracy theorists on this one are 5-0. Okay.
Yes.
There is so many people that looked at it initially, including myself, and I just said, this is not what's being sold.
Mm-hmm.
All you can do is comply and keep yourself from getting pulled in until this stuff starts to settle out, which it did. And then the data starts coming in, the time goes along, and you start looking at the information, and then the communications and the policies and the emails and the texts and all this stuff starts coming out, and you look at it and you can see the pattern. You can see the trend analysis of what was going on, and what's coming out, at least initially, is not good for that team at all.
It is not good at all.
And it's actually potentially, I think, going to be one of the biggest hoaxes that was, particularly in health, and one of the most dangerous things ever done to a population in at least the recent history, right?
But
at least in modern history,
this is what they're going to do in the next 2 years. The Democrats are going to turn it around and say, see, we told you so. This was all Trump's fault.
Oh, yeah. They've already started that. I mean, they're already saying there was something to do with a White House official tweet that said something about Biden was, happy. The senior citizens or people on Social Security were going to get the biggest raise in 40 years thanks to Biden's policies. And it took like 2 seconds for somebody to go, no, the increase is set by a metric that the president has nothing to do with. And the numbers are what caused the increase, not anything.
Did that happen to be the new Elon Musk Twitter that is fact checking the president in the White House?
Technically, though,
yes. Well, it's people,
right. It is his policies that created the cost of living raise necessity because of the inflation. Yeah.
you can take credit for that, because you're the reason that the increase was so large is because it was based on a number you created.
Yeah.
Right? You
I've
created this
gotten to the
mess.
point where I say to some of my liberal friends and my left and Democratic friends, I say, look, it's okay to not vote your party.
Yeah.
It's okay to say, I made a mistake voting this guy in. I tell my friends, I'm not going to hold that against you. It's okay you can stay a Democrat. But what's wrong with Democrats realizing, hey, we really fucked up the last election, didn't we? And get somebody better in office. You got to tell me, and this is a totally different topic, but tell me there wasn't somebody better on the left suited to be president than Joe Biden.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's better people. There were people I would have voted for if they were my option.
Well, that's one of the
morning-
things that's come out in this that I've noticed is the bench on both teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, who's bringing what to the field,
Right.
and you know, what are their skill sets and how do they come across? The point I was making the other night about persuasion.
Yeah.
There's there's when you're saying something as concisely and as simply as possible, and you're able to communicate that effectively, then you have by default the established at least the winning argument or position at a minimum. But most likely what you've done is now it's like it's like one of those master chess moves.
Yeah.
You create a position that the other side goes, huh, what?
Huh?
And they look at it and they can't figure out, because they don't think in systems and processes is what's missing in the empathetic emotional ties that the people in the progressive ideology are push. Okay.
Yes.
They've gotten this this concept of a noble goal. It doesn't matter what it is, clean energy, free healthcare, free education, whatever. It sounds great. And where it falls apart is when you ask the first question of how do we do that? And there's basic systems and processes that enable things to actually come to fruition, and when you put your mind and your energy and your efforts to it.
Yes.
But you have to look at it and vet each process. That's the scientific method. So if you're going to follow science, follow the method that makes the science and see where you get.
Right.
The problem is that there's way too much emotional energy and all kinds of things bouncing around and crashing into the mind and the emotions of these people that they don't want to think, they want to feel. And as long as they feel worked up, they're happy, which is weird because the things that get worked up about, they haven't thought through.
Yeah.
They really don't understand what it is that they're championing, and really completely miss the fact that there could be a boatload of agreement if you could just have a conversation. If we can have a
conversation.
Ask some questions.
And my original
Get some
point
answers.
that I was going to make off of what Chuck Thurston had said, my whole family, and I've talked about this in the past, but my whole family had COVID almost 3 years ago now. It would have been January of 2020. God, it might have been 2021, but I'm not sure when it was, after all the lockdowns and stuff at school. And we all had it. And then, yeah, it was 2021 because last year, September of 2021, we went to Disney World and my daughters wanted us to get tested. And that was 10 months after the fact and after we had it. And so we had COVID, and for having no, what did they call that? Not sequestration, but separating yourself from other people.
Social distancing.
Social distancing. So in our home, we did not wear masks in our home. We did not social distance in our home, but we had 4 of our 5 family members had COVID, and the one girl never got it. And she got it later, but it came out, it was like a cold. We didn't even know she had it. She didn't even know she had it. She's had a bad cold. We said, let's test her. And she had it. So she eventually got it, but she didn't get it when we all had it. All of that to say this, we were not vaccinated. I don't think the vaccination was even out yet, if memory serves, when we all got it. It knocked me on my butt for 3 or 4 days. I felt like I'm really out of it. And I slept, and I thought, this is exhaustion on top of just getting a bad flu or the cold. I slept for 2 days, not straight, but off and on. And eventually I lost my taste buds. When I woke up in a couple of days, I said, I'm hungry now. And I went to eat something. I had no taste buds. And I thought, oh, is this COVID? And went to get tested. Sure enough, it was COVID. So we had to drive up in your car and get tested in your car. And so, and then within another week, I was back to normal. And then Rainey's was the same way. The kids, you didn't even know they had it. They were like bad colds. But all of that to say, 10 months later, having no vaccination, I didn't get the vaccination after that. I still did not believe it was the right thing to do, especially for my family. I didn't mandate it. I said, Rainey, if you want to get a vaccination, go get it. But she said, absolutely not. She said, I don't want one either. And here's why. Well, we went 10 months later to get tested to go to Disney World. And and the whole time we're waiting for the antibody test to come back, the young doctor, the young buck doctor, looked like he was about 18 or 19 years old, trying to talk us into and preaching the glories of the vaccine. And I said, no, we're just really not going to do it. I said, I'm just going to tell you we won't do it. I said, if you want to really push the issue, I'll get into why. And then we'll get into politics and all of that. I says, but suffice it to say. And then our antibodies came back. And I remember him, he's looking at the stuff and he's going, wow. And then he looks at Rainey's. And he goes, wow. He goes, I don't know how to explain this. Your guys' antibodies are like thousands of times the amount they need to be to withstand. There was a certain number. Your antibodies had to be at this level to resist COVID.
It's all that alien blood.
Several thousand times higher. And this was 10 months out. And now I got COVID again. I had COVID a second time when Rainey went to Alaska. The day she left for Alaska, I found out I had COVID. And that was in July. And I was not down and out, but I was sick for a couple of days.
You know, one of the things that's really fascinating, if you go look at the CDC website,
yeah,
and you look up the flu, what are they? The influenza, and you look at the charts from 2019 through now, there's no influenza.
No influenza.
Whereas before, the estimates on an annual basis tracked somewhere between 40 to 60,000 a year would die from the annual flu. And then you ask more questions like, well, where do you get those numbers from? And you find out that the numbers are all estimated. There is no data that they have that they've been using to calculate these annual influenza deaths for the last several decades. It's all estimated.
Yeah.
So they aren't even real
It's
numbers.
like the Star Trek episode where they're running the war by the computer, and the computer says 10,000 people died, and you
you have to report to your disintegration chambers.
Yeah,
like like a good citizen
because
would.
the computer said 10,000 people would have died. So go do that.
Yeah. So and
so that's,
all of this stuff. I also had, and I brought this up before, good friends. You'd know the name if I mentioned it, so I'm not going to mention it. And friends of mine, very liberal politically. And so everything, their whole stance on it seemed that the whole COVID thing took on a political divide. If you were left, you believed you needed all the shots and the boosters and all that. If you were right, you didn't believe in it. That's basically how it came down. But I had friends, so that's why I mentioned they're very liberal progressives. And they were
I
really
think that's actually, Scotty, real quick. I think that is one of the factors in this election.
I think so too.
I think that there's a boatload of these people, primarily on the left and in the progressive ideology, that are thinking, we push this. We followed the rules and we really got in everybody's life.
Yep. We got in your face.
Push it.
There you go.
Now I feel so much better,
Because
Dave.
we're really close. I felt like I was too close to you, Prof, and I didn't want to, Scotty's a whole picture away, but I felt like I was really too close to you, and I was concerned.
That's like KB on Morning Coffee with KB said this morning. He says if you can fart through 2 pairs of pants and I can smell it, he says your mask ain't doing shit.
Well, your mask is doing shit,
or it is doing shit.
Those shit. What farts are turd particles.
Yes,
if you think about it, right? That's
when
where
you
they
think
come
about
from.
it.
So little shit particles are actually what make the smell of the fart. But anyway, going back to the point I was making about these, I think what's happening is there's such a smack upside the head on a regular basis with information that is that contradicts what you have thought and what you believe, particularly as it relates to this pandemic. And then you throw in the other things like inflation and, the state of the world, and as far as war and all these other, there's just a big stew of crap boiling.
Yeah.
And one of the main ingredients has been the whole COVID narrative.
Yes.
And that is unraveling so quickly that even people who weren't paying attention or were blocking the information because it just didn't mesh with my thinking or my beliefs, I'm not going to pay attention to that. But now they're seeing it themselves, and their own people are coming out with the data going,
and
we kind of fucked this up.
Back to my original point that we tributaried off of was my liberal progressive friends who believed and had the vaccination and every single one of the the boosters up and down the arm all along the way. Good friends. And the wife they both contracted COVID. And of course, I'm a smart ass to a certain point, but I'm not going to rub it in. But I wanted to say at the time, I thought you were both vaccinated and had boosters, all the boosters, but I didn't. But she contracted what they were calling the long haulers COVID, where it lasted for months. She had it for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And or more. And I think still even to this day, a year later or more, is still like, I'm still not fully out of the woods with this thing.
And that's not unusual in the history of influenza.
Thank God you had the vaccine and the boosters. So
that's not unusual in the history of the flu. I mean, all of us have gotten some hit by something that knocked us out for 3-5 days a week. And then we didn't feel right for a few months after that. It took a while to shake it off. I mean, that to me is just the normal, viruses and depending on your construction, some people are going to get hit hard and some people aren't. Right.
And I don't have a big problem with, I'm not like an anti-vax person in general, other than, prove to me that it works and that it's good before I'm going to put it in my kids and take it. And so
I'll tell you straight up, I am completely anti-vax. You ain't putting nothing in me.
It's never been an issue for me.
I'm the only one here that's
a thing that's going.
I've never had one. The only vaccines I got was when I was a kid, and they did the stuff in the school.
Oh I got the scar
mark on the shoulder. But after that, no way.
We had to vaccinate our kids for school. All 3 of our kids. And you even got things sent home. We see that your son hasn't gotten all his vaccinations. He might not be able to come back to school unless you show us his vaccine, whatever, and all that stuff. And we've kind of gotten to the point several years ago now where I wouldn't call myself a staunch anti-vaxxer, but I'm one of, hey, don't tell me what to give my kid.
The medical profession, like just all of them. Academia and the medical profession in particular, in this, it's interesting to hear what's going on with the arguments on in the Supreme Court. It's the what's the law? The civil where the equal where they make people affirmative action. That's what it was. So they're talking about affirmative action. And some of the dialogue and the questions is just fascinating. But everything that we have been told from the medical, the financial, and the academic institutions is not only outdated, a lot of it is complete bullshit.
Yeah.
And that's starting to unravel
It
as
is.
a part of this wealth or this knowledge transfer that I've been talking about.
Yep.
People are
Yep.
starting to see this information. They're going, I can't trust the medical. I haven't trusted allopathic, which is the Western style of medicine, since I can remember I became aware of it. And I've stayed clear of it at every opportunity I can. Now, from a mechanical perspective, if your arm's kind of hanging off, needs to be sewed back on and reassembled, they're great for that. But when it comes to
better go see a doctor for that.
biology, yeah. But when it comes to the biology and the spiritual, the mental,
Well, because
they
we
don't
aren't
know shit.
practicing from the concept of healing. We're practicing treatment because there's money in treatment. There's no money in healing.
Yeah,
Right.
it was a Chris Rock that said that, why is there no cure? Well, there's no money in the cure.
That's it.
There is a
Exactly.
cure in some countries, they say.
Yeah. And so, but the understanding of the way that the medical psychology and the approach to the human body is completely wrong. It's mechanistic. It's materialist. It's not, doesn't take into account any of the alternative systems, the Ayurvedas, the traditional Chinese medicine. I mean, these people, this stuff is more about the body and about the chemistry, right?
Love, you make no sense. You're like,
Hello?
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 Sorry. I bumped the phone and something came on.
But anyway, that all the vaccine is the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What's happened with this that's going to expose all the rest of the shit that I'm talking about. So the medical system is going to be challenged because questions are going to be asked, and they're going to have to use, if they want to be believed, and this goes for across any discussion you're having, political, personal, spiritual, metaphysical, or physical, or otherwise. The most important thing is transparency, because when you have transparency, then you at least have a 50-50 chance of seeing something and somebody else seeing the same thing.
Right.
Now, we know that, there's been a lot of manipulation in the psychology that make people see one thing and say, well, that's not what that is. And you go, okay, well, you got a couple of switches that need to be corrected and reset, because that is definitely what you don't think it is.
Right.
But
Now-
there's a lot of that. But my point is that all of this information is going to come out, and everybody's going to start asking questions based on the information that
Yep.
comes out, which is going to start deep dives into the subject matter, which is then going to uncover a whole bunch of other shit that's
Yep.
been around for a long time.
We'll
And
see.
people are going to go, oh, this has been fucked up
And
for a
we're
long
the
time.
three of us, in one form or another, along with many other people, predicting this 2 years ago, 3 years ago,
Yeah.
2 years ago, mostly, that this is what was going to happen. And we were going to find out that it wasn't a big thing. And yet still in the back of your mind, you have that little knock on wood that I'm not wrong about this, but I don't think I am. And so we all thought this, and we were all saying this. Now it's coming out. And you want to say the people who were behind this, what was their motivation? To win like an absolute power over people before it was found out? So even when people found out, they couldn't do anything about it. I mean, what's the motivator? Because you would say, the junk science and all of that, there was a shelf life to that from the beginning. It's
Well,
going to be
but-
found out.
So the
So
largest drain on this system is the elderly.
yeah,
Okay. And the biggest effect on this whole COVID thing was the elderly. Why? Because they allowed it to get into the nursing homes, who were the weakest and most vulnerable to this ailment. And they were like, oops, sorry,
whoopsie.
Grandpa's dead.
Yep. Oh, we're so sorry you didn't get to see him die or be by his side.
Oh, I got to tell you, the emotional
but
and
all those
the
people
energy
that
that's
died,
going to go
they're-
into these people coming after the people that perpetrated this is
But look
going
at
to
it
be
from
epic.
this standpoint. Look at it from this standpoint. Every one of those elderly people is a social security check that's not being sent out. at $2,000 a pop, and how many thousands died across the country?
Sure.
On top of that, it's a Medicare payment that's not being made for hospitalization or their care at the nursing home or what have you. And on the corporate side, it's a pension check that's not being delivered anymore. And all that. It's millions and millions, if not billions of dollars that got taken off the books by letting all those elderly die.
Sarah Yusuf, why don't you come on? You said everybody has different opinions. I'm not sure what you're getting at there. If you're on a totally different end of the spectrum from what we're talking about, would love to hear what you have to say about it.
I sent you a video, Scott. It's from a Instagram thing called The Gay Republican. He's hilarious, but he's talking to Democrats, and basically in a nutshell, what he's saying is, you people think you're in the rebellion or the resistance, but what are you resisting against? You control everything. Wake up and look in the mirror. You're really the empire. You just don't realize it.
That's very true. That's very true. You're the empire. And it's,
well, see, they don't have, going back to one of my other rants, is they don't have a product worth selling.
Yeah.
The market, the consumers, us plebes, hear what they're selling, and we go, I don't want that. I want some of this over here. And so what they've realized that they can't get a natural adoption of what they're thinking and their plans and their policies that have no way to even come to fruition because they haven't thought it through. And you see that with what's happened. This whole the way they managed this was just complete buffoonery.
They opened the southern border with the concept that we're going to give all those illegal immigrants the vote, and they'll vote for us because we let them in the door. Except they're not looking at the fact that 80% of Hispanics coming across the border are Catholic and don't believe, they're heavily Catholic. They don't believe in gay marriage. They don't believe in abortion. They don't believe in what the Republicans or Democrats are selling. The other group coming in, they're running away from communist countries. They're not going to then say, "Ooh, let's create a communist country here. That sounds good." Yeah. No, they're running away from that. Look at Florida with the people that come over from Cuba. No. You don't want a communist country. We'll vote Republican. Plus, most of those people will make their living by starting a small business of their own. And that's not something the Democrats like. It's something the Republicans support. So again, those people are going to end up voting Republican.
Yes.
If they're allowed to vote.
Yeah.
So when LBJ kicked off, well, it was actually FDR and then LBJ added to it, but the whole welfare society, the whole welfare mechanism of being able to take care of those who need it, which is great, very noble. And they figured out a way to kind of do it, but they have just completely mismanaged it. It's the same thing like the war on drugs.
It's an extension of the slave state. If they're beholden to us for their food and their clothing and their shelter, then they're not going to talk back to us and they'll do what we tell them to do.
Yeah. So the theory goes. Yeah.
So the theory goes. And luckily people have been waking up and looking at the Democratic Party and say, why are we voting Democrat? What have they done for us lately?
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. There isn't, when they look at what has been done, what are the results? The results are now to the point to where there's so much consternation and shit out of whack and people struggling and confused and all kinds of frustration, anxiety. They're going, well, I don't like the way this feels. And there's because there's a whole bunch of different things that are making them feel the way they do.
Yes.
But that awakening was what I think is happening. And a lot of it really, I think the sleeper, they're doing all kinds of things on the polls with, is it inflation, economy, border, crime, whatever it is. The one thing I think they're missing on those polls is, was it COVID?
Right.
Was it the way this thing was,
the way
not
it was
only
presented and
the way it was managed, the toll that it's taken? I think that is an underlying perspective that they're missing altogether. And it's common across all those other categories that they typically poll on.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Yes. I agree. Well, there, I think we've solved it.
Well, so now let's go ahead and, I mean, we're just what, 5-6 days out. Let's do
Get off your Easters and go and vote, people.
let's do
super
like
important.
let's do like a candidate casino. let's do a left, a right, and a left casino. So you got $100 in chips for the house. How much do you put on either left or right, Scotty? You go first. You got 100 chips.
Boy, I think I actually think we'll take the house. I couldn't tell you the number of seats that I think that the right will gain. And when I say I mean the right.
How many chips will you put on the right then out of that 100?
Out of my 100 chips, do I have to have some left over for the Senate?
No, the Senate's a different one. You get another set of 100. Yeah.
I would say I would bet the whole ball, the whole lot. I'd push it all onto the table.
100 chips on the red.
The right is going to take over the House.
Okay, Dave.
I agree. I've been looking at the thing, and so you've got the blue side that they know are going to stay blue, and the reds that they know are going to stay red. You've got about 30 so that are in the toss-up. They could go either direction, and the 4 that they're really harping on. And I would put 100 chips on the fact that we're going to take 25 extra seats.
25.
Oh, because were you looking for number of seats?
No, that's an interesting.
I think we're going to, out of those 30 toss-up states, we're going to easily pull 25 out of that, and we are going to walk away with the majority by 25.
Okay, so that means that, what do they need? 210 or 14 for something to pass through the House is the total number. So I'm on the same. I'm going to move all 100 chips over to the red, and I'm going to say that they'll have close to 40 in addition. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the 240 to 250. I think that there's that kind of chance. Now, if that happens, the House has got all these powers, right? They've been trying to exercise it all along and throw shit out there and create committees and do television movies about it and all the stuff. It's like, well, you think you guys are good at that? Wait till you see the folks on the right get all that stuff together and start doing the same thing. I think you're going to have a little better production quality and maybe even a better show.
And much more transparency, because we'll allow the other side to speak. We'll cross-examine, because you learn more by cross-examining.
You have the discussion, right? You ask the questions, you get the data, you make a analysis and based on your observation. All right, let's go to the Senate. Scotty, you got 100 chips.
100 chips. The Senate's going to be a little tougher. I don't know why, but I think we'll take the majority in the Senate. I think, if I can give a little reasoning, I think it's because maybe this is more the philosophical level, but I think people like checks and balances. And I think they're seeing what's gone on with the country and that there's nobody to check and balance that right now. The ones that there's no majority to do that.
Well, there is. I mean, they've got both houses, both chambers, and the executive branch.
No. There's nobody to check and balance what the executive is doing right now.
Well, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And see, when you've got the executive and the legislative all in the same boat, I'm sorry, even for my own political beliefs, when you do that, I think even the political ideology that I tend to adhere to, that I believe in, needs to have checks and balances. There needs to be somebody there saying, wait, we got to think about this. And, for me, to quote the old late sage Rush Limbaugh, he said many years ago, he said, gridlock is good. He says, gridlock is good in government, in the Congress. Why? He says, because the slower the Congress works, the longer you get to hang on to your wallet. Is the way he put it. He was being a little flippant there, but he's correct. And what what did the founders do? They said they made the system the way it is because, and why should there be checks and balances? Because I don't think any party or any political ideology should be able to get into the office and be able to run through anything they want without fearing opposition. There should always be a reason you would have to persuade somebody from the other side to go along with what you're doing. That means, like right now, whatever comes out of the White House, if there's a compliant Congress, it just gets done. Unless you have people asking questions.
Well, unless you have
more and more of.
Unless you have the executive power of doing an executive order
Right.
and getting it through with a 1 or 2 votes.
Yeah. And so
it was like, what?
The founders meant for Congress to work very slowly. They meant for it to be a battleground. They actually provided for fighting in Congress. You have to fight sometimes to get your point made. You have to fight to get a law passed and so on. And so I think no matter what party is in control in the executive branch, the legislative should counterbalance it to a certain degree.
So how many do you think the red? How many chips you're going to put on the
right now
red, and what does that represent? A single vote or more than a few?
More than a few. I think we're going to have the majority in the Senate. I think the country is ready to switch it over. So once again, I'm going to push all my chips onto that square, and I'm going for red. Put all my chips on red because Dave? I think I can't tell you the percentage. I think that we'll gain maybe 6 or 7 seats. I think. And I would be happily surprised if I see us gaining 20. So, what are we laughing at here? What
in the Senate? Gaining how many seats in the Senate?
Maybe 6 or 7.
Wow! And you said you'd be happy if it could be 20.
I said, however many right now. I would love to see the Senate swing and just totally swing, and you've only got a couple left that aren't.
Hit the 66 number for the constitutional amendments, and you just complete power, and basically leaving the president with zero capability.
With zero people to get accomplished anything he wants to get done.
He's a lame duck already anyway.
He's a lame duck.
I would put my 100 chips all on the red again. And I think, I don't know the exact number, but I think we're going to get a mandatable majority. I think that the majority is going to be enough that it's a clear mandate that the people are done with the BS. So
I think that I tend to agree with that.
It's all going to be called off.
Well, that's another set of data that's floating around out there that's quite interesting. Yeah. There's a number of...
We have to be concerned about the democracy, so we might have to not have a vote this year.
Yeah, we might have to come up with something that inhibits that because you see what's going on down in Brazil.
Yes. Yeah, scary.
You see what's going on over in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's been going on in most of the European countries in varying degrees.
People are done with autocracy.
The folks are getting riled up. They're starting to show that it's really about listening to and working for the people that whoever it is, whether it's a king, a dictator, however they get into power, whoever that individual is being challenged now to like, look, we've been watching. We don't like what's going on. There's a whole bunch more of us than you. And that goes into the, all the authorities and the officialdom as well, the police and the military, because those are people their relatives are the people that are out there going, hey, we've had enough. Y'all need to come out of there. We're going to do something different. The next challenge, which I think is going to be really interesting, is what is progress? What are the things that make sense that can be done and implemented by these systems that are governing the people? That is going to be the debate that's going to be extremely interesting and the most profound, because That's where the questions get answers. It's like, yeah,
And,
I'm totally into the green energy. But
Sarah
do we
says,
have anything right now that is actually ready for prime time? No. How do
Sarah
we
says
get
gridlock slows progress. And I would say normally you would think that's so. But when it comes to legislation, Congress, gridlock is supposed to be how it works. You have to convince the other side that your progress, your version of progress, is worth doing. I have a rough time, Sarah, with our Congress or an executive branch that has a compliant Congress and a compliant media, which isn't part of the government, but that
what?
can just
Wait a minute.
do anything they want. Yeah, really.
You sure
That
about
can do
that?
anything they want to do without there being any slowing of the process. I think the process toward progress isn't achieved, I think, by rushing something through because you got all the votes. I think progress happens when you deliberate and you deliberately make something happen slowly. And slowly, I don't mean centuries, I mean, give it a couple of months.
But the problem is that the institutions that are in place that are supposed to enable and guide and support this so-called progress, that system is inept. It doesn't work. It's filled with far too much complexity for age-old reasons and things that just were put in place at a different time for different things.
Yeah.
And resulting into this, quagmire of crap in these systems. So the systems are unable to make any kind of progress that is formative and transformative for the human race. That only happens through individuals, your Teslas, your Einsteins, the people that come up with and the Musk and Steve Jobs, for example, Jack Welch over at GE, and I mean these guys, Henry Ford, these were individuals that created something that was not only good, but it was sustainable and it was definable and repeatable, and it was able to transform things. It didn't come from the government. It didn't come from any institutional model or system that creates the regulations around that.
Yes.
So that's where this whole idea of having freedom in what I was talking about on the cabin last Friday about Musk transforming the Twitterverse into this space where everybody can communicate and connect at their defined parameters. They can interact with, including doing transactions and conducting business with one another and through other companies and entities anywhere in the world. And the dropping of the reforming of the restrictions that are there now, all that stuff's got to get tossed. The reforming that's coming with this new ability to create this kind of system is what's going to enable freedom and liberty.
Yes.
People are, looking at it going, well, yeah, it's tech, it's AI, and it's robots, and all these other things. Yes, it is. That is definitely a part of it. What's that?
Invest in the Dogecoin.
Exactly.
It's super affordable right now. Buy it up.
There it is.
And people like Musk, I mean, you look at him and he's just like Trump, two very powerful, transformative figures. Whether you agree with everything or not, or you like some of it or not, it doesn't matter. Trump is the one that got the whole idea of the news being fake for people to start thinking about it and start checking it.
Yeah.
And then he did all kinds of other things, just basically took the government, this infrastructure, which we are told is not a company, but it is a business. Okay.
Yeah.
And he took a businessman's approach to that infrastructure and did some pretty decent things. And I think could eventually be a part of the transition of that. But Musk, I mean, this kid is just doing crazy shit simply because of his curiosity and his imagination. And he's not inventing anything. He's innovating on things.
Innovating.
But that's what Ford did too. Ford didn't invent the car. He just looked at the car and said, oh, there's a better, faster way to do this.
Yes.
And that consequently made it cheaper and it made it affordable for everybody, and everybody went out and said, hey, I want one.
So it's the age of the entrepreneur, of the independent content creator, of the free thinker, the seekers and the explorers, because now there's going to be, because there's more information, it makes for more curiosity and imagination, which then turns into something that you creatively come up with, you visualize, and then you materialize. This is, we're about to see this opening expression of humanity that we haven't had since probably back in some of the Atlantean times and cycles.
Oh, you take it back that far?
Oh yeah, yeah. The Greeks and the Sumerians and all these different civilizations that we know of were amazing, but they didn't. I think that what they knew and what some of the knowledge from the mystery schools and so forth that they used is still profound. But I think further back around the two-eyed stone and back into these more cosmic and psychic energies that seem to be attributed more to the Atlantean civilizations as we know of them so far and speculated, I think that's more of the kind of nature we're going to see in a transformation. It's going to be a conscious and spiritual transformation that we'll feel because of the energy cycles that we're now experiencing. We're seeing this one fall apart, which is why there's all this angst for all those who rode that wave. Right. That wave is crashing on the beach. The next one's coming behind it, and it's completely different. It's going to be this people are calling it an awakening. I think that's one of the ways you can call it, but I think it's actually a transformation of the energy. The energy, the frequencies that we vibrate at are being significantly altered. So that means that all of the other frequencies that make up all of what we are in a physical and a biological sense are changing too. So there's the mental and the spiritual and the conscious frequency change, and that's translating not only through us, but also the planet, through the solar system. This area of the galaxy that we're traveling through in this with our solar system in a helical model, we're traveling behind the sun. The sun's like a comet. It's not this flat plane where everything's around the equator. That's not what's going on. Yeah. But we are traveling through a galactic wave, a scalar event that is transforming everything that makes up what we know in the known universe. So that is what we really need to be paying attention to, because all this other stuff is just flotsam and jetsam of the
exactly.
Of
and
this
on
wave
that point, we got to leave it for tonight. I hate to say.
God, I knew I'd get that last.
Yeah, you got the last word.
Going for that.
We'll pick this up again either tomorrow night or another night this week. So, good conversation, boys. This is good stuff. Everybody out there, remember,
don't be afraid.
Don't leave it up to somebody else to do, or you're sure to be disappointed.
As KB would say, don't be afeared.
Don't be afeared. Don't be afeared.
Keep your eyes open. Don't be afraid, and just engage and go with the flow.
There it is.
Yeah.
All right, boys. You have a good night. See you, Professor Bauer. Appreciate your input as always. Talk to you soon. Uncle Dave.
Yep.
See you later.
All right.
Have a good night. All right, guys. That's it. That's all we got. Hey, Amanda. I see that you're in from Australia, surfing away down in Australia. Good for you. Good on ya. And so, guys, we're going to get out of here now. It's time to go. I appreciate all of you for being here. We're going to do this again tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. So thanks for being here. Live long and prosper.